I never expected my life to change in the exact moment I was blowing out a candle on a cheap vanilla cupcake, alone in the dark kitchen of a mansion that wasn't mine. I didn't know the billionaire who owned that house was standing outside the window watching me, watching the way my hands shook as I made a wish I'd whispered every year for a decade. I never imagined that a man who had everything would walk into that room, sit across from me, and say the one thing that would shatter my loneliness forever. Stay with me, because what happened after that single candle went out changed both of our lives in ways neither of us saw coming. If someone had told me that the night I ate a cheap cupcake alone in my boss's kitchen would change my entire life, I would have laughed in their face. I was a housekeeper, not the kind of woman who shows up in fairy tales. My hands smelled like bleach. My back hurt most days, and the closest thing I had to a love life was the romance novels I hid behind cleaning supplies in the pantry. But that night in Michael Lawson's oceanfront mansion in Santa Barbara, everything started to shift one shaky breath at a time. It was 9:30 p.m. The house was finally quiet. 12 plates, 14 wine glasses, and an unreasonable number of silver forks. Later, the sink was empty and the dishwasher hummed like it had run out of complaints. I pulled off my navy apron and folded it over the back of a chair, feeling the familiar ache crawl up my shoulders. The kitchen was spotless like always. Big marble island stainless steel appliances that probably cost more than my entire childhood home in Santa Fe, carefully arranged fruit bowl no one ever touched. It looked like a magazine spread. I just happened to be the invisible pair of hands behind it. I glanced at the clock and swallowed. Technically, my shift was over. Technically, I could go to my little room in the back, take a shower, and go to bed. But the date glowed back at me from the digital display on the microwave, and my chest tightened. September 28th, my birthday. I didn't expect anyone to remember. Nobody ever did. I hadn't heard the words "Happy Birthday, Emily" from a living person in 10 years. The last time was from my mom laughing in our tiny kitchen in New Mexico while she tried not to burn the edges of a homemade chocolate cake. 2 weeks later, both my parents were dead, and birthdays turned into something I survived. Not something I celebrated. I went to my room and knelt beside the small metal box I kept under my bed. Inside was everything: wrinkled bills, loose coins, little sacrifices from every paycheck. I counted the money twice just to be sure. It was enough. Barely, but enough. "Happy birthday" to me, I whispered into the empty room, my voice sounding pathetic even to my own ears. I changed out of my uniform into my one nice dress, the olive green one that made my skin look a little warmer and my eyes a little less tired. I brushed my long dark hair into a low ponytail and pinched my cheeks until a little color appeared. For a second, I looked at myself in the mirror and tried to see more than just the housekeeper who slept behind the kitchen. I tried to see the girl my mom used to call her little miracle. All I saw was exhaustion and loneliness. I wrapped my mother's old shawl around my shoulders, the one thing I owned that felt like a hug, and slipped quietly out the back door. The night air in Santa Barbara was cool and salty, a mix of ocean breeze and expensive landscaping. The neighborhood was too quiet. Tall hedges, iron gates, camera systems, houses lit like jewelry boxes. People in these homes had family guests, people to drink wine with on the patio. I had my own footsteps echoing on the sidewalk and the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. The bell over the door at Baker's Lane chimed softly when I pushed it open. The warm smell of sugar and bread wrapped around me like a blanket. Mr. Jack, the owner, was wiping down the glass display case, his white hair sticking up in little tufts. "Emily," he said, looking up with his kind, crinkled eyes, "you're cutting it close tonight." "What brings you in so late?" I pointed at a single vanilla cupcake sitting alone on a tray with a swirl of frosting and one small pink sugar rose on top. "Is that one taken?" I asked, my voice smaller than I meant it to be. He shook his head. "Not yet, special occasion." My throat tightened. I hated this part, but lying felt worse. "It's my birthday," I admitted quietly. His expression softened instantly. "Your birthday, and you come here all by yourself to buy the last sad cupcake? That's not right." He opened the case, took out the cupcake with exaggerated care, and placed it in a little white box. Then he reached under the counter and pulled out a small white candle. "On the house," he said, "every birthday needs a wish." Tears burned the back of my eyes, but I forced a smile. "Thank you, Mr. Jack. Really." I paid for the cupcake with exact change and carried the box home like it was made of glass. Back in the mansion's kitchen, the house felt even bigger than usual. Empty chairs, cold marble, tall ceilings. You'd think a house that massive would echo with laughter or voices. Instead, it echoed with silence. I set the cupcake on the wooden kitchen table where the staff usually had breakfast before everyone arrived. It looked tiny and almost ridiculous in the middle of that huge space. I stuck the candle into the frosting, turned off the lights, and struck a match. The little flame flickered to life, soft and golden, reflecting off the stainless steel and glass. For a second, the kitchen felt warmer. Not physically, just less dead. I sat down, clasped my hands together, and closed my eyes. Same wish as always. Please God, just 1 year where I don't feel so alone. Just one person who stays. Just one place where I belong. A single tear slid down my cheek, hot and salty. I didn't wipe it away. I took a breath, leaned forward, and blew out the candle. Smoke curled into the air, and the room fell back into the kind of darkness that feels like it wants to swallow you. Happy birthday, Emily, I whispered to myself. I cut a small piece with a plastic fork, and the cupcake really was good. Soft and sweet, and a little bit like childhood. Vanilla and sugar and grief. I tried to eat slowly to make the moment last, because once it was over, the day would just be another day that no one remembered. I didn't know that someone was watching. I found out later that Michael's car had pulled up right as I lit the candle. He hadn't come through the front door like usual. Instead, for reasons I still don't fully understand, he'd walked around the side of the house toward the backyard, his expensive leather shoes crunching softly on the stone path. Maybe he needed air. Maybe he didn't want to go straight into his sterile, perfectly designed living room. Maybe something in him was tired of pretending he was fine. All I know is that when I looked up from my cupcake, he was suddenly standing in the doorway. The back door creaked open, and I jumped so hard the fork almost flew out of my hand. Mr. Lawson, I gasped, scrambling to my feet so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. My heart was pounding in my ears. I'm so sorry. I'll clean everything up right now. I didn't mean to use the kitchen like this. I was just leaving. I reached for the cupcake, ready to toss it in the trash if I had to. The last thing I needed was to get fired over a stupid birthday cupcake. Emily, he said, quietly, and there was something in his voice I had never heard before. I froze. He stepped fully into the light, closing the door behind him with a soft click. His tie was loosened, his dark hair slightly messed up, the first faint streaks of gray at his temples catching the light. He didn't look like the powerful billionaire who owned a chain of luxury hotels. He looked tired, human. His eyes shifted from my face to the cupcake to the extinguished candle. Is it your birthday, he asked. The question felt like a spotlight on my soul. My first instinct was to lie to make it smaller, to make myself smaller. Yes, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, I should have asked permission. I'll clean up and get out of your way. You're not in my way, he said. His eyes held mine and my stomach flipped in a way that scared me. And you don't have to apologize for existing in a house you keep from falling apart. I didn't know what to say. No one talked to me like that. Not here, not anywhere. He took a breath like he was making a decision in real time. Then he shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over the back of a chair. I stared at him, completely thrown off. This was not the script. The script was he walks in, frowns, maybe says something like, "You're still here," and I vanish into a puddle of professional apologies. Instead, he pulled out the chair across from mine, his fingers tapping once on the table. "Can I sit?" he asked. My brain short-circuited. "Sir, I don't think that's Emily." He cut in, his tone gentle but firm. "Tonight, I'm not your boss. Tonight, I'm just a 42-year-old man who realized he might not be the only lonely person in his own house." Something cracked open in my chest. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was something raw, more dangerous. Recognition. I sank slowly back into my chair, my fingers gripping the edge of the table to steady myself. He sat across from me, elbows resting lightly near the little cupcake between us, like it was suddenly the most important thing in the world. "Happy birthday," he said softly. "I'm sorry no one told you that before now." My throat closed up. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This man whose life was full of money and deals and important people was sitting at a worn wooden table with his housekeeper treating her birthday like it mattered. In that moment, I had a terrifying thought, but if I let myself feel anything about this, my entire life might change. I looked at him, at the tired sadness in his eyes, at the way he was trying so hard to be careful with me, as if one wrong word might make me disappear. And then a question rose inside me that I didn't dare say out loud. What if I wasn't the only one who'd made a wish tonight? So tell me, if you were in my place that night, would you have let your billionaire boss sit down and share your lonely birthday, yes or no? When Michael sat down across from me that night, I felt something shift so sharply inside my chest it almost hurt. I had spent years mastering the art of being invisible, and suddenly he was looking at me as if I were the only person in the room. It made no sense. A man like him didn't see women like me. Men like him saw executive socialites, women whose perfume cost more than my entire wardrobe. Yet there he was sitting at my tiny birthday table, sleeves rolled up, eyes soft in a way that felt dangerously intimate. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, neither of us really knowing what we were doing. Finally, he nodded toward the cupcake. "May I?" he asked quietly. I blinked, confused. "May you?" "What?" He smiled just a little. "Have a bite." The request stunned me. Michael Lawson didn't eat store-bought cupcakes. He ate pastries made by professional chefs flown in from France. But before I could overthink it, I slid the plastic fork toward him. "Go ahead," I whispered. He took it, cut off a small piece, and tasted it like it was something sacred. Then his eyes fluttered shut, and for a split second, he looked almost peaceful. "That's really good," he murmured. A laugh escaped me, a quiet, shaky one, but a real laugh. It surprised us both. When he opened his eyes again, something had changed. They weren't just tired, they were vulnerable. I wasn't prepared for the weight of that gaze. No one had looked at me that way in a long, long time. "Emily, why were you celebrating alone?" he asked. My throat tightened. I didn't want to explain. Birthdays, grief, loneliness, those were things I kept locked inside. But he waited, and his waiting felt gentle, not intrusive. "I don't have anyone left," I said, forcing the truth out slowly. "My parents passed away, and I never had siblings. It's just me." He swallowed hard. "For how long?" 10 years. A silence settled between us, not cold, but heavy. He looked down at his hands like he was remembering something. "My wife died 3 years ago," he said quietly. "A car accident." Just like that, she was gone. After that, I started filling my life with work meetings, anything that kept me from thinking. I felt a jolt at his honesty. This wasn't small talk. This was the kind of confession you only give someone when your heart is too tired to pretend. "I'm sorry," I told him, and I meant it. He nodded, staring at the table. "Tonight, what? When I saw you sitting here with that cupcake? I don't know. Something hit me. I didn't like the idea of you being alone in this huge house. Not on your birthday." My chest felt warm in a way I didn't trust. I tried to look away, but he leaned forward, slightly drawing my focus back to him. "Emily," he said softly, "has anyone asked you what you want? Not just tonight, but in general. What you truly want in life?" I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. "Sir, I clean houses for a living. Wanting things just makes life harder." "Michael," he corrected gently. "At least for tonight, call me Michael." I froze. The request wasn't inappropriate. It was tender, disarming. Like he wanted to close the distance between us inch by inch. "Michael," I repeated carefully, the name unfamiliar on my tongue. He smiled, and I swear it softened something inside me I didn't know was still breakable. So he continued, "What do you want?" I looked down at my hands. They were small and rough from scrubbing from years of trying to hold my world together. "I want a place to belong," I admitted. "A place where someone's happy I exist." He inhaled sharply as if those words landed somewhere deep in him. "You deserve that," he whispered. "More than you know." Before I could respond, his fingers brushed mine. Just a small touch, but electric enough that every hair on my arm stood up. I pulled back instinctively, not because I didn't want the touch, but because the wanting scared me. "Sorry," he said quietly, drawing his hand away. "No," I whispered. I don't understand what's happening." His voice dropped to something almost fragile. "Neither do I." We sat there caught in a tension so delicate, it felt like one wrong breath could shatter it. Then suddenly he stood. "Stay here," he murmured. Before I could ask what he meant, he left the kitchen. I sat frozen, staring at the candle's leftover smoke curl upward, like a ghost. My heart thudded painfully while I waited. When he returned, he was holding a small white box with a gold ribbon. "What's that?" I asked softly. "A gift," he said, placing it gently in front of me. "I bought it this morning on the way to my meeting. I didn't know why at the time. Now I do." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a tiny star pendant. "It reminded me of you," he said. "Quiet, beautiful, just waiting for someone to notice." Emotions surged up so fast I had to cover my mouth to stifle a sob. No one had given me a birthday gift in years. No one had looked at me like this in maybe ever. "Michael, I can't accept this," I whispered. "You already have," he replied, his voice steady. "And I want you to know something. Tonight isn't charity. It isn't pity. I don't feel sorry for you." He stepped closer. Too close. Close enough that I could smell his cologne cedar bergamot, something warm and expensive. "I feel connected to you in a way I can't explain," he said. My pulse hammered. "Michael." He stopped, reading the fear and confusion in my eyes. He didn't touch me, didn't push. He simply breathed in, then let the moment settle. "Emily, He said softly, "I don't expect anything from you. I just don't want this to be the last time we sit across from each other." Like this, that sentence, it cracked something open inside me. Hope. Dangerous, stupid hope. The kind that could warm you or burn you alive. I looked down at the little cupcake between us, then back at him. "Maybe it doesn't have to be the last time," I whispered. He exhaled slowly like he'd been holding that breath for years, and for the first time since I'd known him, he smiled a real smile, a soft, genuine one that reached his eyes. "Good," he murmured. "Then let's start there." As he walked me to my room later, the night felt different, charged, alive. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. But in the quiet of my room, staring at the necklace in my hand, I felt something else too. Fear. Because letting someone in meant giving them the power to break me. Tell me honestly, if you were in my shoes, would you have trusted him enough to open your heart even a little, yes or no? In the weeks that followed that quiet, trembling birthday night, the world around me seemed to tilt in ways I didn't fully understand. Michael didn't overwhelm me with grand gestures or declarations. Instead, he walked softly into my life the way you approach something fragile that you're terrified of damaging. Every morning, he appeared in the kitchen as if it were the most natural place for him to be, asking how I slept, offering me coffee he insisted on making himself. He wasn't smooth about it. Half the time, he forgot to add sugar or spilled a bit on the counter, and the sight of a billionaire awkwardly wiping a coffee spill with a paper towel almost made me laugh. Almost. But the thing that truly disarmed me was the gentleness behind everything he did. It wasn't charity, it wasn't pity. It was effort born from something real, something growing in the quiet spaces between us. I tried to pull back. God knows I tried. I told myself not to believe him, not to fall into something that could shatter my life if it went wrong. But every time I tried to place distance, he closed it again with sincerity so steady, it made my excuses crumble. The way he looked at me made it impossible to hide behind invisibility. He saw me, truly saw me, and part of me longed for that more than I wanted to admit. Still, the fear stayed. It wrapped itself around me whenever I woke up whispering that I didn't belong in his world. That eventually he would snap out of whatever this was, and I'd be left with nothing but embarrassment and heartbreak. And I might have kept living like that, hesitant, half in, half out. But life has its own timing, and sometimes it forces you into the truth you're avoiding. The turning point came one afternoon when a group of his business partners arrived unexpectedly. I was cleaning the dining room when they walked through the hall, men in tailored suits dripping wealth and entitlement. I stepped back to give them room, keeping my eyes down, invisible like always. But then one of them made a comment, a careless, arrogant swipe at people like her. He said it so casually, as if I wasn't standing right there, as if my presence didn't matter enough to consider my humanity. Before I could swallow the sting, Michael stepped forward so quickly his chair scraped the floor. "Don't talk about my staff that way," he said, his voice so cold it froze the room. I looked up, stunned. He wasn't just defending me out of politeness. He was angry, protective, the kind of protective that leaves no room for misinterpretation. His business partner stammered something about meaning no offense, but Michael cut him off again. "Emily is part of this home," he said, "and she deserves respect. All of her does." The room fell silent. The men exchanged uneasy glances. A few seconds later, the meeting was canceled entirely. When they left, Michael turned to me, still tense, his jaw tight. "I'm sorry," he said. "You didn't deserve that." Something inside me cracked open. Not from hurt this time, but from the sudden, startling realization that he meant every word he'd been saying since that night in the kitchen. And when he touched my hand just barely, I didn't pull away. After that day, the fear that had dominated me began to loosen. We talked more, laughed more, spent quiet moments together in ways that felt natural and gentle and startlingly intimate. I wasn't falling blindly. I was letting myself fall with my eyes open. Then came the night that changed everything. My birthday came again. I didn't think he remembered. I didn't expect anything. But when I returned from running errands for the house, I heard music drifting from the backyard, soft, warm, familiar. When I stepped outside, my breath left my body entirely. The yard was covered in lights. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting golden glows across the grass. A small table was set in the center, decorated with white flowers and a single candle. The kind of magic I had only ever seen in movies. And standing in the middle of it all was Michael. "You remembered?" I whispered, trembling. He smiled. "I remember everything about you." He took my hand and led me to the table where a small vanilla cake waited, the same kind I had bought for myself the year before. Only this one was homemade. He admitted to burning 2 of them before getting this one right. The thought of him in the kitchen trying to bake made my throat tighten with emotion. "Emily," he said softly, "last year I watched you blow out a candle alone. and I realized I never wanted to see you lonely again. Not on your birthday, not on any day. My heart hammered against my ribs. The lights reflected in his eyes, making them look almost liquid. There's something else, he said, reaching into his pocket. For one terrifying second, I thought he was about to propose, and I almost forgot how to breathe. But instead, he pulled out a small silver key. What is that? I asked. It's to your room, he said. Your new room, upstairs. Not the one by the laundry, not the one with the broken heater. A real room, a room meant for someone who belongs here. I shook my head, overwhelmed. Michael, I can't. You can, he said gently, because you're not just someone who works here. You're someone I care about, deeply. I don't want to hide that anymore. I felt tears spill before I could stop them. Not because of the room, not because of the key, but because for the first time in my life, someone offered me a place, not out of obligation, but out of love. Michael, I whispered, I'm scared. He stepped closer, touching my cheek lightly. So am I. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. I closed my eyes, letting those words settle into all the empty spaces inside me. When I opened them again, something shifted. Something finally let go. Yes, I whispered, I want to stay with you. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. Then he leaned in and kissed me. Soft, tender, trembling. The kind of kiss that feels like a promise. The night unfolded in warmth and laughter and a feeling I had nearly forgotten existed. Belonging, safety, being wanted. Months later, we would build a life together that neither of us had dared dream of. A home filled with laughter instead of silence. A marriage born not of perfect timing, but of two broken souls finding something whole in each other. But that night, the night of the key, that was the real beginning. Before I end my story, let me ask you something from my heart to yours. After everything Michael and I went through, do you think love like this is worth the risk, yes or no? If this story touched you, leave a comment below. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Tell me which country you are watching from, and please share this video to spread this message of hope and love to someone who may need it today.